Tonight on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the incredible new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, tonight on NBC.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Recruiting Book Club. I'm Carmen Hudson, and I wrote a book about recruiting last year and discovered that there are many other recruiters who have put their thoughts to paper and are happy to share what they know about recruiting. I'm excited to share these conversations with you. I've talked with TA leaders and TA professionals who've written books about what's happening in our profession. So why don't you buckle up as we hear from the best in the business. I'm going to start by welcoming Craig Fisher to the Recruiting Book Club. Craig is the author of Hiring Humans, and I've known Craig for many years. I can't even remember where we first met, and we actually have some similarities in our careers, in that we both consult. Craig started the Talent Net Live conference probably a little bit after I launched Talent 42, but we know what that lifestyle looks like. And he's written a book. So I am excited to learn more about Craig. We don't cross paths as often as I'd like to. We never get a chance to sit down and talk. So in addition to interviewing you for the show, I'm going to drag some stuff out of you.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since we got to see each other on a regular basis. I think COVID kind of interrupted. We had a flow for a while where we'd see each other. Exactly.
And connect. But let's just get all. But before I launch into all of that, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, talk about your career. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason that I decided to do this podcast we're speaking directly to recruiters, is to encourage recruiters to write their own stories, write their own books, write their own blogs. Because I think the more that we share, the more that we can learn from each other, the more that we can get better at this thing that we do called recruiting. So I'd love for you to take me through your career, even the early parts of it. You don't have to go deep into detail, but really focus on those areas where you had fun, that you really enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated from University of Oklahoma with an advertising degree, and I really wanted to be in political advertising, but I figured out very quickly that only rich people get to do that because you don't get paid anything for the first 10 years. So
same thing for journalism, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You make no money and you go to live in small towns and you kind of support yourself and for those of us who are trying to make it on our own.
So I went to work for a pharmaceutical company called Glaxo. Now it's GSK. Mm-hmm. And I sold drugs in Houston for a couple of years. And then I got a better job selling hospital equipment. And I moved up the ranks and I got to hire people and teach people how to get into medical sales. And I loved that whole process. Mm-hmm. And then I got recruited to recruit physicians.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Sort of in some rules changed about how you could entertain doctors. And so some people jumped out of the medical sales industry and into that recruiting business. And a year later, the .com boom hit and we all became tech recruiters for Matrix Resources. And I became a leader there and, sort of moved on and up through staffing until I owned my own staffing business starting in 2007. Ran that for several years. And while I was doing that, I started using the available tools, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, to kind of promote our business and my opinions about things. And, I'd been doing this a long time at this point and had strong opinions about how to kind of hack your way through a recruiting or sales job. And you've got a few different types of people, right? You've got your robots that are dialers, and you've got, relationship focused people. And then you've got some people like me that are a hybrid, but utilize available technology to make things work in your favor, right? So I got, an an opportunity to start the first Twitter chat for recruiters back in 2009 or so, called TalentNet Live, or hashtag TNL as we called it then. And we get together once a week on Wednesdays in the evening, and everybody would have their drink and we would just talk shop. And it was, at the time, is social media good for recruiting, basically, right?
Right.
That became an IRL request. Let's all meet up in real life. And so we started the TalentNet Live conferences, and that's how that all started. In the fall of '09, on my original board were Chris Hoyt, Jim Schneider, right? Brandon Barber, people like that, Gail Houston.
I have never
And
been a guest at TalentNet Live. I'm just saying.
oh, let's go.
We have to
We could
figure
do
that out.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So from the success of all that, I was able to, people started asking me to speak at their events and their sales kickoffs and to their recruiting teams and come teach us and train us. And so I was able to start a consulting business and sell my part of the staffing business to my partners. And really, ever since then, it's been Craig the consultant. And occasionally companies tap me to do a full-time job, but I always leave my flag up for TalentNet Media
Right.
and TalentNet Live. So for a few years in the mid 2010s, like 2015 through 2020, I became the chief marketing officer for Allegis Global Solutions. They had me on site at CA Technologies as a talent leader for a couple of years. And I ran recruitment marketing and employer branding. And then they pulled me out and I got to work with all their other customers. So Amex and GM and all these wonderful things that I got to do. And I ran
Right.
a year-long digital transformation project for Toyota here in North Texas. I got to basically spend my days there.
Very cool.
And yeah, so when when Allegis kind of decided they were changing things when COVID hit, they were not going to pursue new RPO business. And we were in the RPO space. I just went straight back to TalentNet Media, and now I consult with Fortune, 500 companies, mostly like Fortune 50 companies, and do really interesting projects. So, JP Morgan Chase asked me to help them restructure and make sort of compliant all of their job descriptions, and there's 13,000 of them.
Right.
So that was
We
a
will
fun
talk about
project.
this because, reading your book, you talk a lot about job descriptions and how to, and you even share some great examples of just how to delve into that. And what I found, and maybe this is just me, I'm biased because I don't like to write job descriptions, and I
Right.
don't know anyone who likes writing job descriptions, but I know that it's necessary. I know that it's necessary to do this well, to get it right. I'm always trying to get hiring managers to commit to it. They never do.
Mhm.
Um, what's your advice for people just to move that forward? And how do you take 13,000 job
Mhm.
descriptions and turn them into something that's brilliant and that gets the job done and also is, attracts candidates?
Mhm. So it's sort of the same methodology that I suggest for writing your resume or doing a job interview for a candidate, right? Talk to someone like you're telling a friend,
Mhm.
right? What it is you want to do. And so with the job description, you need to have some kind of introductory marketing language that speaks directly to the candidate. So you language, as I like to call it. So you're this type of person, you have these skills.
Right,
We're looking for people like you. Imagine what we could do together,
right.
right?
I'm sure
And
you've seen that LinkedIn article where it talks about it kind of highlights what people actually read in job descriptions.
mm,
And if you have this long description about the company, candidates just skip right over
tuned
that.
out.
They're
That's
looking
right.
for, at that stage, the core of what they will be doing,
Mhm.
and they're looking for how much they're going to be paid. They're looking for where they're going to do it, and they're looking for a little bit about what do they need to make sure that they bring to this organization. But we seem to the very worst job descriptions seem to get that backwards, and they spend a lot of time talking about the company. And at this point, you
Mhm.
can't blame them. And if you've ever been a candidate, you don't care. You care about finding an opportunity that matches what you have to bring. So I think,
That's right.
yeah.
Well, and one of the issues now is that we know that the CRMs or applicant tracking systems are going to do, match and rank.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of an AI thing. And what we're seeing now is this weird upside down thing. So employers don't really want um, job seekers using AI to enhance their resumes,
Right.
right? Because everybody's a match.
We've got to figure out the way around that. And
So the opposite is a problem for employers now. So if you have a job description that's not AI optimized to get matched to those
right.
optimized resumes, then the job boards are not going to show your job description
Right.
very high.
Right.
And so, whether we want to think so or not, search engine optimization or AI optimization is a thing now for job descriptions. I did a project once with DaVita,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a cool project. I noticed that their job descriptions weren't ranking high on places like Indeed. And we figured out that in their applicant tracking system, they were cloning their templates.
Oh.
And it was carrying over old JSON metadata from years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So Indeed would see those jobs as 3 years old.
Right.
And the first filter you can use as a candidate is show me the newest stuff.
The most recent. Right.
Right. So we saved them about $250,000 in their ad spend by optimizing their process there.
Which is probably something that many companies can go in and take a look, because they're probably
Oh,
all
yeah.
falling prey to this. And if
Well,
you don't have anyone devoted to paying attention to this, you have to go
no,
out and pay someone to do it. Or
yeah, there's very rarely an operations person in
right.
talent acquisition or recruiting or even talent management that is looking at all of that. And
Right.
it's like what we're finding out about government spending. It all goes out, but there's no reconciliation at the
Right.
end.
Right.
Yeah.
So you wrote a book. Why did you write a book?
It's funny. I've got these mantras. I've got these things that I talk about on a regular basis and have done so for years. And very often when I work with an organization, Matrix hires me back or has hired me back multiple times to do stuff with them. And their leader would constantly say, Craig, if we could just get this in a book, that'd be great. Right. And so I needed to get it out of my head. And
Yeah.
my next book is coming out in a few weeks, and it's
Excellent.
called Paint Your Store. And so maybe we'll do this again. And it's geared towards the job seeker.
Oh, awesome.
So it's the same methodology, right?
But
Show
it's
yourself
really,
well to the public and good things will happen.
what did you learn by writing a book, and what did you like or dislike about it?
So it's interesting. Writing a book does a lot of good things. You're not in it for money,
No.
right? First of all, writing a book is an expensive business card.
Right.
But you do learn that your message has a story arc. And so that helps with your presentations and your pitches and
Mm-hmm.
just the way you discuss what it is that makes you special. And so, kind of putting it in an outline, putting it in order, and going to do the research about the stories you want to tell, right? And it's really researching your own past is a really useful exercise for anyone. And I found that once I got it all out on paper or my computer, I remembered so many things about some of the fun things that I've done in my career
That's it.
that I wouldn't have thought about for, maybe ever.
Well, I started with, when I wrote mine, with a whole list of names and incidents, and I realized very quickly I had to take all that out. But
Right.
it really does sort of recall all those things that you have done. And if you have had any kind of, length of recruiting career, you've done some interesting things. You have worked with some interesting people. You
That's
have
right.
applied yourself on interesting projects. So it's just fun to read. I love that it's not very long,
Right.
but
It's
you
more of a
see
manual.
more of a manual, but you share specific examples, and I love that. And we can get into the mind of Craig, and that's really cool.
Yeah,
So
I like to tell stories there, Carmen,
yeah,
and you do too. And I'm very interested in learning more about your book as well. But keep going.
yeah. Well, I want to hear a little bit. You titled it "Hiring Humans," and you said early on in the book that we kind of forget about the human side of recruiting too often. I'd love
Hmm.
to hear a little bit more about, like, in what way and what does that look like. You talk about automating humans out of the process. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I'm a tools guy, as you
Mhm.
know, right? I'm pretty techy and nerdy,
Yeah,
and I love exploring tools. The other half of my business is, working as a go-to-market and marketing advocate for the product side of recruiting, right? The
right. Well,
vendor.
anyone who goes in and looks at someone's database and figures out, oh, our job descriptions are showing up with old meta tags,
Right.
you're kind of a nerd.
Yeah. Super nerd. Um, but I've always said that while we're utilizing this great technology, we can't forget that somebody has to utilize it,
Right.
right? It doesn't work on its own. So automation, AI, you remember when the iPhone came out, boy, that was going to be the end of recruiting as we know it because, we're not going to need people anymore. And same thing with the internet, same thing with, all
I
these
was
innovate.
there. I was there for the beginning
Right.
of the internet, and all I could see was possibilities. And
Yeah,
what's interesting to me is that from that period to now, the time to hire is about the same.
that's right.
It's
Yeah.
about the same. So,
Yeah. And one of the biggest one of the biggest obstacles to a successful onboarding of new technology is turnover,
mm,
okay? So it's turnover at the employer that buys it, right? So whoever bought it, got into that deal, leaves and leaves
mhm,
everybody else with this software. And then there's turnover at the vendor. And so then you've got a whole new team that doesn't know what was originally agreed on.
right,
Nobody's keeping track of it. And it becomes a really sour relationship very
right.
often. And
If you're
so
not the biggest client, no one cares.
that's right. And so that's all a very human thing. So there's no there's no shortcut that makes everything better. There's some good automation that takes non-recruiting activities off of recruiters' plates. And let's utilize that, but we have to keep empathy in mind because job candidates are essentially our future teammates.
Right,
Why would you want to treat them any differently
right, right, right.
with
A
ghosting and bad
and that gets
communication?
so
Yeah,
so lost in all of this. You
right.
are putting a person inside of a group where they're going to perform with other people. And so not only understanding what it is that you and your team will offer this person, but how this person will interact within that team and assessing both sides of that is really critical in order to do this well.
Yeah, yeah.
So, we started talking about this a little bit, but we have very similar backgrounds,
Mhm.
you and I. You started a recruiting conference, and I worked on a recruiting conference. We consulted and led teams and Fortune 500 organizations, Fortune 30 organizations. What do you prefer? What gets you excited about in this world of recruiting?
So I feel like, those of us who go into consulting or even recruiting are problem solvers.
Mhm.
And right, we like a challenge and we like to solve something and fix it and then do it again, or, do it somewhere else or
I
do it
love
different.
fixing things.
Yeah. Right. And in the situations where I get into, an employment situation where I'm, like a W-2 person, it has to be a thing where I can fix multiple things, right? So, in an RPO company that you wear all the hats. And so I
Right.
got to do all kinds of stuff. And, then in my own consulting work, um, I don't have any sales force. I do very little marketing. I'm just a public person and people come to me and say, hey, could you help me with this or that? And and that's exciting too, right? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
when you land one of those deals, there's a
Right.
thrill there. So, I like the fact that I kind of get to do sales and marketing and thought leadership, and then also this sort of operational stuff where I'm like a fractional CMO or a fractional operations leader and really solve problems. So I don't know. I like it both. I go in and out of, regular employment. And I think that's a kind of a good way to go. I mean, I feel like I'm a rare talent leader that also gets to be wear that CMO hat sometimes, which is
That's it.
fun.
That's it. And
Yeah.
and offering advice because you've lived it, because you understand this is what's critical.
Right.
That's really cool. So, you talk early on in the book about building your online presence and how important that is. To be honest with you, I'm wrestling with that, and I probably have been since post COVID. I don't know when this started to happen, but I started to be less interested in using some of the tools. I'm not sure what works best. I've leaned heavily on LinkedIn, but I wasn't always that way. In fact, LinkedIn was probably third or fourth in the numbering of the tools that I used. How are you thinking about this? How should we be thinking about this?
Hmm. So I've got a pretty strict methodology, right? So I feel like, everyone should have three things, personal things that you feel comfortable sharing about yourself with the public, right? Because if you're in sales or marketing or recruiting, or you own a business or you're in training or whatever, you're a public person, right? And so people want to do business with people they feel like they know,
Mm.
like, and trust. And the know part is hard to do unless you share a little bit about your personal life on a fairly regular basis. And so how are you going to do that? Can you talk to 5,000 people in a year? No,
Right,
but
right,
you can
right.
reach 5,000 people with 3 LinkedIn posts and a Facebook post and a Twitter story or a Instagram story. And so my mantra is just consistency over time.
Mhm.
Keep posting and use my my ratio is 5-to-1 give to ask ratio,
Mm.
right? So you're going to ask for things apparently occasionally, like refer something to me or read this, fantastic article that I'm featured in or, things like that. But you want to give back on a regular basis. So I'm constantly making things that I give away. So the other day, I'll give you, for instance, I'm doing a podcast with Patrick Rooney right now from Mahalo Hub called On Agency. And we interview marketing agency leaders. Some of these are real famous people. And one of them said the other day, she talked about customer experience as a nurture wheel. And I'm like, wow, we could use that in recruiting. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I created a
The minute you
nurture
said it,
wheel.
my mind started
Yeah,
spinning.
right. Yeah. And so I created one and I published it on LinkedIn. I'm like, just give me your feedback. This is for the world. I think this is fun. And I've done that with my empathy map and
Mhm.
my persona templates. And so I'm constantly making stuff to give away, but also I try to entertain a little bit as well. Right. So
Yep.
sometimes I'm funny. Sometimes I just post stupid stuff my kids did. And, I want people to go on a journey with me and to feel like they know me and my family and what my life is about when they meet me. And very often they do feel like that because I've just been consistent over many, many years.
What I love about the Workforce Agility Limited series by Cornerstone was we talked to executives and customers all about skills, 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 skills. Cornerstone has a wonderful background in learning and development, training, etc. Their LMS is world class, but they've centered the business now, not just on that, like building upon that, but building upon how everything is moved to the skills economy. So check out the limited series called Workforce Agility, and you can get it wherever you get your podcast. And it's just a wonderful series where we talk to their executives on the shift of why, and also their customers that are using it. So check it out whenever you get a chance. Appreciate it.
There's a personal side that you give away, and what I learned over the years is that you give away just a very thin layer of that. That's what frightens, I think, a lot of people. about using social media. They're afraid of giving away too much or sharing too much. And I think you have a great way, although note to self, I need to read your LinkedIn post about the thing, but you have a great way of giving away just a little bit about you and who you are and your life, and taking people on that journey with you without sharing everything. And I think recruiters often really confuse social media with giving away everything. And having used it for many, many, many years, I think you'd be hard pressed to know a whole lot about me, even though my husband on the other end is on
Yeah.
social media as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think there's too much oversharing
yeah,
happening right now,
yeah,
first of all.
yeah.
I don't love the complaining and the woe is me nonsense. And I believe in transparency, but only to a certain extent, right? You don't need to share everything.
You have to think about, and that's probably where I'm struggling as well. Do you use it for your personal beliefs? Do you use it professionally? Is there a difference? And I think perhaps, traversing that line is becoming difficult for people, and you have to really think about it.
Well, so at its best, social media is a business, right? It's an advertising business.
Hmm.
It's a lead magnet. And so, putting a little bit of your personal self into it just helps with leads. But never forget the fact that you don't want to alienate half of your potential audience
Right,
by being overly opinionated about things that half the people aren't going to like.
right. Or maybe you do want to do that, but be aware that that's what you're doing.
Yeah, for me, I have a very long-term view of this.
Yeah,
So in 10 years, am I going to regret having done that?
right.
And if so, if there's even a remote possibility, then I'm not doing that.
Yeah. I don't know if we are 100% in alignment there, because I think there's some things that you can stand on your hill, and you're going to lose people who are, who may be fans or potential
Yeah.
customers or that piece of it. But you have to be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Well, I do have strong opinions about certain things, but
Hmm.
they're not usually I'm not trying to take moral high ground myself. So I suffer from a weird situation, right? So I'm a member of the Cherokee Nation. I'm a
Hmm.
card carrying Native American person, but I present as almost too white.
Hmm.
So I don't go around talking about it really because I feel like that's bringing the rest of them down
Hmm.
somehow.
Interesting.
Right. And so while I am I'm a minority owned small business and, a hub business, underutilized. And I do charitable things with the tribe and, I give back in all kinds of other ways.
Right.
I don't talk about those things.
Interesting.
Right. And that's, to me, it's just my thing. And you may remember back in the early days, I never even listed my kids' names. They were all called numbers 1, 2, and 3 sons
I remember that.
for
Yes.
years.
Yeah.
Right.
To me, that was great. That was fine, because you want
Yeah.
to protect their privacy as well.
Yeah. And so no one has to know everything about me. Now I'm
Right.
talking about it here right now, but I'm using it as a specific example, but I don't, right. That's not part of my routine.
Right.
And so I feel like, you stalkers are real.
Oh, trust me.
And I've also had multiple sort of doppelgangers that use my pictures and my kids' pictures to create, fake accounts
What's
and try to
that
get
all
money from people.
about?
It's I was told by a friend of mine who is a cybersecurity guy that it's mostly Russian syndicates
Yeah.
and that doing anything to try to find an individual that's doing something to you is folly.
Right.
And so you just block and report. And I've had to do that dozens of times. It's
I do
crazy.
that all the time. I do it almost daily in
Mhm.
terms of phone calls and messages that I get, through the phone. I don't understand it. I am hoping that, I make sure that I am checking everything and that I am okay and things are fine, but it's a little bit scary out there. So, in the same vein, you write later on in the book about Foursquare, and I just have to tell you, I was the biggest Foursquare fan.
Wasn't
I
that
just,
fun?
you could just show up anywhere and find all kinds of people, and it was a great tool. And you write about it as well. But it's gone, right? It became a different. It translated to a different product, and is there something we can do similarly, or is that gone forever?
Well, so I still use it, whatever the app it became.
I want to say Behance, but I don't think that's the one. But yeah, it
No,
did translate,
yeah,
and the business itself, the business model changed. Foursquare
yeah,
itself still exists, and it's still a money making venture. But the idea that you could show up somewhere and find contacts or find people unknown to you around you, but who
yeah.
may be, but find their job titles or find their workplace
Hmm.
was fantastic. And
Right.
remember, I was in New York in the middle of Union Station, and I was telling my cousin about this, and he's like, "That's crazy." And I said, "Watch this." And sure enough,
Hmm.
people showed up right there in my timeline. I'm like, if these are the kinds of people that I'd be interested in recruiting, I could reach out to them. I could figure out who they were.
Yeah. So Swarm is the new app.
Swarm is the new one. Yeah.
And I still check in to it when I go to the airport because you can post that to Twitter, and DFW Airport always responds to me.
Mhm.
And so I have this ongoing relationship with at DFW Airport that's
Right.
going back 15 years
Right. Right. Right.
of travel, and they always welcome me back and wish me good luck and answer my questions, and
Right.
it's really cool. Um, and so I do use it for that. But I mean, I think the closest thing is like Yelp,
Yeah.
maybe, right?
Maybe. Yeah.
And so I actually am a reviewer. I I give
Oh,
reviews about
you
things.
utilize reviews.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so, Goodreads and Amazon and,
Hmm.
all the
Hmm.
places you can do it. It's just a good way to get your footprint
Yeah.
bigger, right? I'm all about um, amplification, and, what used to be SEO is kind of morphing now. And so I'm really enjoying exploring the new ways that you can trick algorithms and not spend $1 million on advertising if you don't have to, right?
Right.
There's a hack for everything. So that Foursquare hack that you're talking about,
Yeah.
where I went and I camped out at Starbucks across the street from AT&T,
Right about that. Yes.
and I became the mayor there, and so I could post a tip that people would see when they go check in to get their points and their free coffee and stuff.
Right.
And my tip would be, uh, hey, I'm sitting in the corner over here interviewing people for tech jobs at Verizon. Come see me.
Right.
Also, try the mocha latte.
Right. And every once in a while that would work, and it would work really well.
It did work. People would come over and sit down with me, and I hired several people for Verizon doing
That's
that. It
it.
was
That's
crazy.
it. And it
Yeah.
just makes recruiting just that much more, I think, just
Hmm.
three-dimensional and so much fun.
Hmm.
I want to go back to just your work in employer branding, and you talked about your empathy map. Tell me a little bit more about that. How would you describe that to listeners?
A few years ago, I got asked to go be part of an IBM think tank, future of work thing. And so a bunch of thought leaders and influencers from social media space and the analyst space came together in NYC at IBM headquarters, and we got to hack the future of work. And so it was fun, and we got to do these design thinking sessions in the Watson building, which was pretty cool. And one of them was an empathy map. And so you draw a crisscross on a whiteboard. So you have 4 quadrants, okay? And you draw a circle in the middle, and the circle is supposed to represent your target audience.
Mhm.
So from a marketing perspective, who are we trying to sell something to? Okay. And then what do they see, hear, feel, and do? Okay. So you're trying to understand, what their life is like, who their influences are, what their pains are, and how you could address those with your messaging. And I immediately said to myself, shoot, we could use this in
Right.
recruiting. And so I just stole it and turned it into a recruiting empathy map to build personas for your target candidates.
Hmm.
Right. And so the fun way to do it is now you can do it digitally, but if you're in person with your recruiting team, draw that empathy map on a whiteboard and give your team sticky notes and Sharpies, multicolored sticky notes and Sharpies, and have them fill in the quadrants. So, what is this candidate? We're imagining a 27-year-old Latina engineer from Wake Forest or whatever, right? And so, what's her life like? Who does she get influenced by? What does she see during her day? What does she feel about her work and her life? Does she coach soccer? Does she play soccer? Does she still live at her parents' house? Does she have kids yet? Like all these things you can imagine, and get your recruiters to fill in the quadrants. And it helps to actually have someone in the room who does that job, maybe a couple of people,
Right.
because you may have 4 different personas for the same role.
Right.
There might be 4 different types of people that are really good in that and sticky to your organization. And so it's just a really fun way to understand, you know, what is it that's cool about our company that would move the needle for this person,
So that would be the
right?
next step, to take a look at the company
That's
or the job or the work or the group
yeah.
and
How do we
understand
talk
how
to
they
that
plug
person
in.
and fix,
Yeah.
their needs? Yeah.
And do you
What
leverage
we
that
got.
information to figure out how to reach out to candidates, how to
Mhm.
advertise to candidates?
All the time. And I would, help the employers that I was consulting to go through that exercise as well. And they always found it very enlightening. Like they thought they knew who their messaging was for, but it's not just one thing, and it really needs to be personalized. And so, you end up with kind of lots of alternative messaging, which is important depending on the channel and the target audience.
Very cool. Thank you. I just want to bring that out because it was fun to kind of read about it and think about how you might apply that in different circumstances and different
Yeah, I
groups.
mean, think of, you think about ad copy
Right.
or job descriptions, right?
Right.
And all of these things where messaging is important. And now, you can kind of plug that persona information into a chat GPT or a Claude, and it does some of the initial heavy lifting for you, but you still have to, there still needs to be human eyeballs on it,
Right. You
right?
still
So
have to
it's,
understand the very specific points about that specific organization that they
yeah. So when I
yeah.
built a custom GPT for that, financial job description product. They were
Oh,
all,
very cool.
we're doing tech jobs, right? But they were using Oracle Recruiting Cloud, and that presents the jobs on the career site in these little bubbles. And so you can see the beginning of the job description in each one. It goes all down the page like this. And so they can't all be the same. And
Right.
so you have to have something slightly different in each that's still appealing.
Right.
And so what I did figure out is that the GPT can be pretty good and can be good at formatting and all this stuff, but also, you've got to have a human look at every one.
You really
There's
do. And you have
yeah.
the human's going to really figure out if candidates will identify with this. It can't just be
Hmm.
presented to you.
That's right.
I would love to, every single time I go well beyond what I planned for the time of this. So I'm gonna plow you with two additional questions, and then
All right.
we'll wrap up. But the first is just about metrics, and I know that you are a metrics guy, and you talk about in the book you talk about understanding your candidate journey metrics, your time to fill, all of that. You talk about aligning your recruiting metrics with your business metrics. Can you share an example of when you've done that and what some of the results were from that?
Yes. So I feel strongly that if we're going to be good business partners, as HR and talent should be, we should know how the business runs, right? So, you should be asking in whatever role you're in or whatever customer you've got, how does the business make money? Okay. what jobs have we sold? What work have we promised? How many people are we going to need to do that work? And what is our churn? And most talent leaders can't tell you at any given time, how many exactly people do we currently employ?
Right.
How many contractors do we have exactly? You'd have to look in 5 or 6 different systems to figure all that out. Right. And so, you know, be actively thinking about, you know, how does the business make money and how does what we do impact that?
And that data sits in so many different places. Although now I suspect there are tools to make it a little bit better, but even
Getting a
as
little
much
better.
as, a year ago, we struggled to get all of that data in front of us in real time with accurate numbers. And
Right.
uh, um, it's not impossible, but it takes a little bit of work to make that happen.
You can make a dashboard that pulls it all together. We built one at Allegis, and it was fun to build, but it was still, hacking multiple things together into one
It really
dashboard,
was.
basically. Yeah.
It really is. So the sooner we can get that right, and if anyone has some ideas or if there's a tool out there that can help us do that in a way that gets us just much closer to accuracy. I was always just disappointed by our ability to get the most accurate number at any time, at any given time.
So you can kind of do it now with an AI, a custom GPT and some zaps,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
Zapier,
Yep.
and so you can sort of do it if you've got API access and webhooks and things like that to your various systems. But think about all your systems, right? You've got a VMS, you've got an ATS, you've got a CRM, you've got
Yep.
an HR
HRIS. Yep.
IS
You've got to
system,
pull
and all these things.
finance data, all of that. That needs
That's
to,
right.
yeah.
And so it's tricky to do it in a compliant way.
Yeah.
And that's where you need advice most of the time because there's not anyone on your team currently that has that information.
100%.
Yeah.
Love that. All right. So my last question is, and you kind of referenced this in the beginning. We're in the precipice of change. There's
Yeah.
so much that's happening within TA, and the near future is going to look very different I think, from what it looks like currently. What kind of change is is standing out most to you? Perhaps most startling. What
Yeah.
should we be preparing ourselves for? What are you thinking about the most?
Well, we have yet to see if this is a real trend or if it's just a short-term thing, but the talent acquisition space is shrinking,
It is.
right? Recruiters are shrinking. TA roles are shrinking. Part of that is due to we're in a down economy right now and hiring went flat for a long time. And part of that is due to AI and automation. But I'm starting to see, as happens in an economy like this, more activity in the staffing and RPO space,
Mm.
for instance. And so it's this natural swing. We see it every 10 years or so. But all that being said, you've got some really talented people in internal TA that are now starting to get tasked with more talent management
Mhm.
activities, right? So as we get into, what this economy ends up being, it's going to be important because the gig economy is real. People can pick up their tool belt and walk across the street and get a job sometimes, right? Even though, corporate jobs seem hard to come by, we still hire people, right?
Right.
Recruiting is not really broken. And so it's going to be internal mobility and longevity and things like that that make companies better. And so, you've got a talent team. That's what they're good at. So let them work on those types of projects and processes.
That's it.
And so we're maturing, right, as an economy, as employers, and as a, a space, in TA, it's just maturing.
It really is. It's interesting because it feels like it's a down economy, and I think that is because the many sectors of the job market has been hit. But if you look at corporate performance, it's some of the best performance that they've seen in many, many years. So we're I think experiencing some of the downsizing that comes as a result of of AI. I don't know how permanent that is, but that is what we're seeing. So I think it's an interesting call out. But focusing on internal mobility and focusing on figuring out who has what talents within the organization is a good place for us to be. And there's not a lot of new learning that we'd have to do to be really good at that. So
Right.
I love that. This has been a great conversation. It has gone much faster than I thought the time would go. I have probably 12 other questions that I haven't asked you, but that's okay. I'm excited to hear that you're writing another book. We'll have you back on to talk about that book and keep writing, keep doing the stuff that you're doing. And I'm going to make it the Talent Net Live at some point. I think you've got one coming up in March.
We do March 7th. You can go to talenttexas.com for details. It's in Austin. It's going to be great. We'd love to see you.
All right. Oh, I love Austin. Let me see if I can figure that out.
All right.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks,
Craig.
Carmen.
Thank you so much for joining me.